Thank you everyone for being here, and oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming all this way and joining us tonight. We are so fortunate to really have you here. And well, first of all, we wanted to get a sense of who is here in the room. So how many of you are designers or architects or artists or engineers even? Okay, good to know. So you're going to have great questions at the end, right? Wonderful. So as we said, we've brought you two here today because of these two exhibitions that really speak to identities and histories and joy and pride of heritage. And we wanted to explore those ideas through your design practices and how you work towards systemic change. So perhaps, Kūhaʻo, if you could start with sharing your personal journey, your design philosophy and approach, and how you use design to affect change.
Mahalo, thank you. I'm incredibly honored to be able to sit and be able to just share a little bit of my trajectory and my path over the years, and then also to, both of my parents are actually over here too. So they might be embarrassed of some of the pictures. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, I think for me, doing a lot of this design work has just been a vehicle for literally my own personal self-development over the years, over the multitudes of mistakes that I've made, and hopefully some of these pictures, as well as some of the answers today, can just maybe be some gems along the way, hopefully. But other than that, I appreciate and am humbled by everybody showing up tonight. So mahalo nui. Starting it all off, as far as Zane Designs and SZKaiao. SZKaiao is my design studio that was started in 2004. And just a small note about kaiao, the term kaiao. Kaiao is that like first light break on the horizon when the sun's breaking from the horizon in the morning. And my grandma, who's actually pictured here, she was always inspired at that time, and she was always up at that time to try and capture the best idea that was out there in the crisp morning air. And so for me, she was born in 1913. The fact that she had this pursuit of creativity or this pursuit of genius was something that I felt that was the best gift that she passed on generationally. And so for me, the design studio Kūhaʻo is almost a tribute or an honor to be able to honor her pursuit of creativity or her pursuit of genius. Her name is Edith Ke Kuhi Puʻuena Naʻaliʻi o Kohala. And of course, she hails from that area of Kohala, like in her name, and that's where our family is from. And she was steeped in well, I'm actually the sixth generation, and there's two generations after me, but steeped in a generational practice of hulaiha'a, and all of this lineage of both song as well as chant and dance is usually or mostly about our volcano. So Halemaumau that you see back there, and to her, I dance hula in the mirror, so sometimes my left and right is a little bit. To her left, is my mom, Nalani Kanakaʻole, and to her right is my auntie Pua Kanahele. But this term, kuhi puʻuone, that's in her name, it's a pretty unique term, and I always wanted to I always wondered about it, wanted to know what the definition of it was. And so when I looked it up, there's a few definitions, and you can actually find it in the dictionary too, in the Hawaiian dictionary. But that term kuhi puʻuone is it's a position within royalty that usually advises the ali'i or advises the chief about where to build your heiau, like you see in the background, and also how to connect that heiau to environmental phenomenon that's happening, no matter if it's cardinal points or if it's sun rising or moon rising. And with all of this data that they're gathering from this heiau, they're able to advise the ali'i what's the best move, and also be able to figure out what kind of abundance will be happening in the near future. And so this term kuhi puʻuone, kuhi means to point, kuhi means to point-ish, and then pu'u is mound or earth, and then one is like earth. And so the idea of pointing where to put these mounds of earth. And so what it translates into is architect. Pu'one is an architect. My mom really wanted me to go to architectural school. I didn't really have the attention span to make it through architectural school. So I went to graphic design school, much to her pleasure. You know, she was so pleased with that. Anyway, that's the term Pu'one comes in, and this term, as well as the practice of architecture and reading the land, is a huge driver for me, especially in my design career. And also Edith, she also has a quarter, which is kind of crazy. I finally got one as change the other day. I mean, not even people don't even pay with cash anymore, especially me, but I've been paying for cash just waiting to get one. But they honored her with a quarter not too long ago. So Edith Kanakaole, she was a cultural icon. She was one of many to be able to formulate the Hawaiian language and build it into a curriculum for the university system. And so she was definitely one of the drivers of the Hawaiian Renaissance in the 70s and was able to bring our Hawaiian language from, you know, a few hundred speakers and even less than a few hundred, all the way up to the thousands of speakers and the generations of speakers that we have today. So this is my mom. I call her Renaissance Tita. I say that because during that time in the 70s when that Renaissance was happening, the Hawaiian Renaissance was happening, and the reemergence of our culture and our language, my mom was already kind of steeped in that Hawaiian culture already, and so she took that time to be able to see what kind of interests out there that she, maybe external interests like architecture or like fashion or sculpture or painting, and she really took that time to delve into each of these different regions, and I feel that it's her almost like the nexus point between these modern interests as well as her traditional upbringing that for me is a huge inspiration, and so that's why I call her a Renaissance Tita. Okay, so the next guy over here from Kaneohe, right in the middle. So his name is Zane. Some people may have heard of him before. Definitely a few Aloha shirts that helped me pay for college here. But Zane, he ended up moving to Hilo and then also learned under Halo Okekuhi, as well as my grandma Edith Kanakaole, and that was one of the inspiring points of Zane Designs, was the idea that this rich cultural history that he learned at Halo Okekuhi, as well as understanding the different associated cultural practices with hula, like lei making or making your ahu or your regalia, and so this deep, rich cultural history was being taught to him, and he wanted to figure out how to repay. And so Zane Designs was a vehicle to be able to share this educational knowledge that was gifted to him and share it out into the public. And so Zane Designs was kind of that start, but he definitely did not want me to show this picture. But it was actually at Roosevelt High School that one of his friends taught him how to do this process of ruby lithe. I'm not sure if people are familiar with ruby lithe, but it's a red film with a clear film on it, and you go with an X-Acto and you hand cut into it, and when you peel away, the relief is what you're left with, and that he would use for the emulsion process to be able to do his screens and then actually start screen printing. Okay, so he moved to Hilo. You know, this is the 70s, kind of hippie-ish time, right? Was probably camping, hiking, surfing, doing everything, not making money. So when it came down to, I know, awkward conversation, but when it came down to courting my mom, the only way that he could court her was to screen print these pareos and gift it to her. And, you know, then my mom would go to the halal, and people would see her with the pareo. Oh, Nalani, where you got the pareo from? Oh, the Pākehā guy in the third row. Anyway, but our product is the Aloha shirt, and it's not just the aesthetic of the Aloha shirt and the cut Aloha shirt, because that hasn't really changed over the past 40 somewhat years, but it's actually the cultural narrative and the cultural depth that's shared or embedded within the aesthetics of our design as well as our artwork. And so that's the most important part. But to kind of round us off, where my cousins call me out all the time because they're like, of course you'd put a picture of yourself. It's like, I'm talking, I can put whatever picture I like. But for me, what's important as a designer is the fact that the cultural practice continues to fuel the perspective. So making leis, making my regalia, going and learning these dances is what fuels my perspective for design. And so it's that continual cultural practice that serves the perspective. And I wanted to kind of finish off, there's a couple slides here, but I wanted to finish off with this question here. One of my friends, brilliant guy, Brent Kakisaku, we were having a meeting and he brought up this question that he says he likes to ask this to himself every morning. And he's from here. I was like, wow, that's huge, but how do I deserve to live here? And so if you ask yourself this question, it's a rhetorical question, but most times that answer is a fiscal answer, right? If you can live here, if you're able to live here. And so he likes to answer this as in, how do I deserve to live on this aina or live on this land? The land doesn't take money. So what kind of reciprocity can I provide to the land? And these are all his answers. And I was like, wow, that's brilliant. So I kind of broke this down, and this is just kind of like a starting point of the conversation for tonight. But I like to look at culture. You know, sometimes you hear people chanting, sometimes you see hula. Sometimes chanting makes you feel awkward. I know some, you know, even for me sometimes. But I like to look at culture as more like a operating system. So in the top, you have your users, and your users is anybody. These are my two kids up there. Is anybody. If you've been here for, you know, generations and your great-great-great-great-grandfather came on a canoe, or if you came here and your grandfather worked the plantation, or if you came here on Saturday and you're here for a week of vacation, whatever it is, you're a user of Hawaii. So kind of keep that in mind in context. And then also the second thing is that as far as Hawaiian culture, I like to look at it as an operating system. And so our culture is actually just software. It's a software. So the fish ponds that you see, Heia fish pond, or an Ava ceremony, or the heiaus that you saw in other pictures, all of that is software for us as Hawaiians to be able to integrate with the hardware, which is aina, the finite resource of land on an island of aina. Excuse me. And unfortunately, especially currently right now, software's a little broken. So what can we do to kind of reconnect to this hardware? Because one thing I have to mention is that the Hawaiians lived here, we lived here for thousands of years, and we didn't crash our hard drive. We continue to live here sustainably. And so keeping in mind what kind of gems or what kind of solutions or what kind of ideas are embedded within our culture, within our software, that worked with our aina so well. So I leave that here because to me, each of these Aloha shirts are a spark of curiosity and an open conversation to understand that software a little bit more. Mahalo nui.
Cedric?
Well then. That was incredible, bro. You know, I feel very honored to be here. I think, you know, I very much feel like a guest here. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to share this space with all of you, especially you. And yeah, so, you know, this opportunity to come speak and share my story, there was a piece in the exhibit during my research that really resonated with me, that really spoke to my story. So I'm gonna root my story in that piece as a storytelling vessel. But this idea of dreaming has been a really reoccurring theme for me, especially as of recently, as I've gotten deeper in my corporate career. And it's something that I think is deep rooted in a lot of different ways. So this piece by, you know, Faith Ringgold that I was really attracted to really resonated with me, and I thought that it really connected back to my story. Boyhood dreams comes true. And immediately when I looked at this piece, it there was immediate layers that jumped out at me in terms of seeing this young boy, Henry Tanner, understand and see a mirror of himself in this painter, and realizing this is something that he wanted to become, but understanding the context of which the story is being told. In 1872, you think of him with his father in this moment, and him maybe having a dream to be a painter, and his father maybe not supporting that idea, because who are you to think that you can become that? You know, society has told him that, you know, you are nothing. And so, you know, just thinking about this really, you know, it stuck out to me, and there's some themes that really popped up when looking at this piece. And, you know, I thought that, you know, this idea that, you know, to dream is a privilege, you know, for a lot of us. And to be able to attain that feeling of what it feels like to dream, it's like these butterflies in your stomach. And I knew what that felt like too when I first decided that I wanted to become a designer. Just the idea of what I could experience and see and achieve was really special to me. And so, yes, this idea that, you know, dreaming is a privilege, and these generational opportunities is something that not only I thought of at looking at this piece, but, you know, spending some time with Mr. Steele, with Bob, you know, thinking about the generations of printmakers in this assortment of artists, and how these generational teachings, these torch passings. And, you know, I think about my great-grandmother, who was the seamstress in the family, you know, making patterns out of newspaper. On my grandfather, on my mother's side, Murtis Johnson, you know, never really got the opportunity to take advantage of her skill sets. And, you know, this is, again, an opportunity to talk about the idea of this generational opportunity that was passed to me, that I take very seriously. And it means the world to me. My great-grandmother, that I've recently learned more about. As you all know, it's very hard sometimes for the Black community to know who they are, where we come from. In some ways, I envy you. But, you know, it's really interesting to learn these things. And, you know, my great-grandmother, Lena Hudson, who at one point was the oldest Black person, I think in the United States, at 112 years old, 24 kids. You know, she has her own day in Florida on Mother's Day, which is pretty crazy. And she was born in 1870, you know, which is only a few years after the emancipation of slaves. That in itself is real and heavy. Her son, Calvin, my dad's father, sharecropper, you know, doing his thing. You know, going back to that photo, he was someone that often told my dad he wasn't going to be anything. And my dad defied that odd. My dad's mother, Julia Hudson, as well. I'm going to do my best to get through this without being emotional, but it's a little tough. My grandparents. It's just a beautiful thing to see how these people, you know, work through something so hard in terms of the lack of opportunity that was given to them, but they made the most out of it. My grandfather, 33 years at Modern Welding, an incredible craftsman, working with metal. He taught me how to draw. He's still with us, you know, he vibing. But, you know, then this idea of, the relationship, the Black son and father dynamic. My dad was very supportive when I decided to pursue design. You know, he's a Marine, great husband, but he's still my dad. There when I was achieving my thing on the track. And then the all-knowing Black mother. Very supportive. When I decided to become a designer, I went to Virginia Tech my freshman year, transferred to Indiana. But before I transferred, I said, hey, I think I'm gonna do design. And I met some of my college teammates at Virginia Tech. They were industrial design students, but I didn't know what that was. We're talking fall of 2007. So I'm like, bro, what is an industrial designer? And they said, hey man, we wanna be footwear designers. And I just was like, what do you mean? And they started showing me their coursework, and I was like, whoa, I wanna do that. Because mind you, growing up, I was creating with origami. I was building model cars. It was the Legos. And of course, as I started taking my coursework at Indiana, flat pattern development, I said, oh wow, this is origami for people. And then you learn about the designers like Izumi and so on, and it all starts to click. But again, my mom was like, of course. She was like, and then she started telling me these stories about my great-grandmother. But my mom is a great entrepreneur, owns her own lash business since 2008, Lady D Lash Studio. If you have any family in Mount Dora, Florida, send them her way. She's one of the best in the world, in my opinion. And then this idea of having a vision of self, which is something about Henry Tanner having this vision to become who he became. And that was me in high school with track dreams. I ended up jumping 24 feet in high school. I was ranked 24th in the country when I graduated from high school. That was what I knew. And again, before I transferred to Indiana, that's when I realized that I had the opportunity to pursue track and field. But then, of course, my fashion design career at Indiana was all Big Ten in the long jump, jumped 24 feet again while in college. And then I continued to pursue. I interned at Reebok, but during my senior year at the beginning, I got the call that I was gonna be going to Adidas as an intern at the beginning of my last year in college. So they offered me before I graduated. So my whole senior year, I knew where I was going. And this is me on my first day. So this was kind of, the beginning of a lot of great things. Just what I was able to achieve in the industry. As you heard, my time at Adidas across multiple business units, Yeezy, sportswear, basketball, designed things for James Harden, did some work with Pharrell. And I don't know, this idea of the banjo lesson from Henry Tanner, this was his kind of, one of his most popular pieces. And my banjo lesson became this education through design, which was the Greensboro chair that I built with Christine's brother, my man Ben. And yeah, just, these people changed the course of history with a piece of furniture, And I wanted to pay homage to that. And, we got nominated by Dwell. Won the furniture and lighting category in Grade Magazine in 2021. So this idea of forward together, that was it, was able to bring everyone forward with us with that piece. And this idea of keep dreaming, because you have no idea, what you're capable of. And yeah, it's just, everything's been a dream. As you can tell, it's very emotional for me. So I apologize. So yeah, I just feel I just feel very honored to be here. It means the world to me. I feel seen. I feel heard.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you. And just one other thing, I'm sure Bob saw me yesterday, tears streaming down my eyes, listening to him, and I felt like I was just looking in the mirror, someone that's achieved so much and the platform that he's given, and as a collector of Black art, these print studios that are supporting, at the root, man, it's just crazy. And so just to hear him talk about the pieces and just get to, share that space again, I never thought that I would be in this position. And again, just to think about what the atrocities that my people have been through, and to be sitting here carrying that legacy, it's crazy, man. And so I'm just grateful. And thank you for allowing me to share my story and to be here. It means the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for sharing your stories and telling us about those journeys and how we are here right now at this very moment. You both had an opportunity to spend time with the exhibitions Fashioning Aloha and Forward Together yesterday. So can we speak a little bit more perhaps about what really resonated with you? And you said a little bit already, but perhaps a little bit more about what you connected to and how it connects to your worldview.
Yeah, I think the beauty of the exhibit, especially as Mr. Steele took us through it all, was just this idea of course, of community. How everybody was, supporting each other. Again, a lot of these Black-owned print shops and studios, and how it's them at the root, but then how just again the passing of knowledge and the support. We often talk about how you be your own people, that don't support you, and just to see how this web, this gumbo of people have just supported each other to build something so incredible. And often, we talk about how the art is so beautiful. So it's the beauty that kind of draws you in maybe at first, but just the depth of the storytelling within the pieces, and the technicality, as well. Especially looking at the Dancing Angel piece that we spent a lot of time talking about, the amount of screens it took, and I don't know, it's just something about it that really resonated with me in terms of, again, just the team, the community aspect of it that I felt was really important.
Yeah, I would definitely echo a lot of the sentiment that Ced was talking about, and I think for me, the gumbo, like you said, that was a really good word. The collective of creatives, especially for marginalized people, is essential for success. And I think that the opportunity to have these innovative print shops all over, and Bob really gave us a great breakdown that it was a formula for success to a certain degree. And so they use this gumbo of sort to be able to teach their craft and actually re-own the craft for themselves. And so I learned a lot of lessons, especially listening to Bob share. And even I was telling Bob, I was like, I want to be like you when I grow up.
Me too.
But yeah, and then when we made it over to Fashioning Aloha, there were a lot of similar parallels, especially in grasping narrative. And to me, that's one of the biggest things that I learned from my dad as well as my mom is how do we re-own our narrative? And I think that especially when you look at Aloha wear, a lot of the perspectives built into Aloha wear are always from a tourism perspective, or always from a tourist or outsider perspective. And some of the greats of Aloha wear too, the Shaheens and all of them, they weren't from here. But again, I prefer to focus on how we can reclaim, especially that avenue of communication of Aloha wear, that avenue of communication, and re-own the narrative and recraft the narrative for ourselves. And so I think that within both exhibits, there's similar parallels and also similar struggles that we have to kind of get through. So I appreciate both of them, and the fact that we actually get to have this conversation here, we get to identify those parallels even more so. Yeah.
Okay, so many things have just come up now. Generational opportunities, bringing everyone forward with us, owning narratives. Okay, so I just want to go back to this generational opportunities, and we did see that a lot in Forward Together with the generations of printmakers and master printers and that creation of community and traditions, right, amongst African American printers over 3 generations. And we see it in Fashioning Aloha, in how designers and manufacturers are working together and collaborating, and how next generations are taking ownership of Aloha wear, as you just said. So how do you build community and amplify the work of other designers, other artists, other cultural practitioners for the next generations?
I was gonna say, I mean, as you speak, that's my homie, the Cedric Mitchell. He's a glass blower located in LA. He's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Obviously, there's not a lot of black glass blowers, and him and I connected through IG. I love his work. He has this incredible postmodern, this funk approach, and I was telling them, I actually need to send y'all the article still, but this beautiful article that I was reading on before making this piece for Cedric, that Bell Hooks was talking about the connection of the postmodern art movement and the Black experience, this idea of difference and otherness, and how some people that are proponents of this postmodern art movement still have this master mindset of sameness, and there's just this depth to it, and I really wanted to pay homage to his work that really resonated with me by creating this piece that really set a stage for his glass work, lining it with also this photo of his brother that passed away, down to even the buttons being all different colors, just paying homage to that work as well. But I think just we're able to raise up everybody in terms of, again, this idea of collaboration, this idea of partnership. And I know me and a lot of my homies, we try to do a lot of that together, because I think this idea of reclaiming our story, this idea of, trying to, and some of it is cathartic in this way of just finding ourselves, and I think that's, at least for me, that's a big part of the work, is the research and understanding why things are the way they are, how can we continue to, bridge some of these gaps? How can we make sure that we take advantage of the lack thereof of the opportunities that, my great-grandmother didn't have, or my grandfather didn't have, because, they set the tone, they made it through all of that. And so who are we to not, take advantage of what we have in front of us now? And so I think the more that we can come together and lean on each other in terms of, what is his superpower, what is my superpower, because then together, obviously, beautiful things happen. So, yeah.
I'll just go on a ledge and say, you know what, community is actually a Hawaiian word. I'm going to start owning English words now. No, I say community is a Hawaiian word because I think, especially growing up in Hilo, one of the big things is that you don't toot the horn. I just heard somebody toot the horn the other day. I had to walk up to my window and look outside like, who toot the horn? But it's because you have an accountability. You have the accountability in a small town to the other person that's on the other side of that, that's on the other side of the stop sign. And I think that small town accountability is is community to a certain degree. And that's what I love about Hawaii, and that's what I love about Hilo, is that since we're on this small island, we're actually all together in this really small space called community. And to this day, while I'm designing things or while I'm working on things, I can still hear my auntie yelling at me in my head. And to me, that's the effects of community, small community. And so, the next time you're on the plane, and I understand if you have a connecting flight, that's cool. But next time you're on the plane and you get up and you walk to the front, when everybody's getting off and the person walks all the way to the front and just cuts in line, basically, just know that the respect for the other person next to you is a product of Hawaii. So when you get up and you walk to the front like that, you're actually eroding the product of Hawaii. And so I can understand if you came from New York or something and you're in a rush, cool, whatever. But also to understand that the definition of community is that accountability to one another. And I think that the opportunities that lie now, especially as creatives, is to kind of build that relationship and that accountability to each other. And so for me, I appreciate the other creatives that are in the room that I've learned from, that literally have been my mentors over the years. And I hope that we can kind of provide that same platform. I mean, even with our small, we have a small gallery space on Smith Street called Kūhaʻo Space. And that was literally to try and build small communities of up and coming and emerging artists. And that was that same opportunity, was how do we tell their story in the same way that so much people have told Zane's story.
So speaking of stories, then, you had mentioned about this nexus between modern and tradition, and your story here of bringing that forward. What I've heard you both talk about the need to have really strong narratives, right, and to own those narratives. So what are the stories that you want to tell, the stories that haven't been told? What needs to be told?
It's interesting. I know we have some people from Fabletics here. For me, I'm very blessed, to be in the role that I'm in at this company. And I do feel like even myself being at this level as a VP of design is almost like a form of resistance, activism. As a Black man, being in this role reflects how far we come, but with me being one of the few, reflects how much far we have to go. And when being in this space, yes, it provides opportunities to tell stories, things that haven't been told yet. But I've often been, reflecting on, some of my most important work now that I've ever been doing is building up the team that I manage, providing an example of what is possible, and helping them, guiding them through, tough days, hard conversations. And I think there's a beautiful story that's being written right now. And I don't know, it's my focus on design has sometimes it's shifted from like, I gotta make the coolest thing I can, and now I've gotten to this place where I'm really I'm focused on the people that I'm fostering and the people that are around me. And I feel like, really just making space for them to create, some new stories. Making space for them to have a platform to be their best selves. But yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to tell some new stories, and kind of chart that path. Was able to tell stories though of Lee Elder, who first Black man to play in the Masters, as a platform, through Fabletics, which was great. But I think there's just a lot of struggle, that deserves a platform for storytelling. That, you know, as I've done my research, that I'm finding new, you know, vessels for storytelling. So that's something that, you know, I'm really excited about.
There's so many stories out there, especially on our Aloha shirts. Nah, just playing. I think one of the major stories right now is, and well, I'll try to make this as quick as possible, but during COVID, I actually kayaked into Waimanu Valley. It's a pretty remote valley on HoMA coast. But I went in, and it was kind of a personal journey for me, but I was doing an awa ceremony, like to make an offering before I landed, you know, to make sure everything goes smoothly. And then as we were like pushing through the waves, and as my kayak was going through, the waves like washed one of my water bottles that I had, and then I was left with one more water bottle, and so I was like, oh, do I use this last water for the awa to give my offering? And I was like, uh-oh. It's my only water bottle, but I had a filter, so I was like, okay, I gotta wait till I get into land. Anyway, it was silly planning on my part. Long story short, I made it in and set up tent and everything, and I was pretty parched. And I was like, wow, this is really bad planning on your part. You're gonna have to press the emergency button on your GPS thing, and that's the end of your trip. I really didn't want to do that, but I had to sit down because I was literally like so dehydrated from kayaking 5 miles on the side, and then landing and then setting up camp. As I'm sitting there dehydrated, like trying to think, what the hell am I gonna do? I'm looking out to the ocean and it's blue sun. I'm like sweating, and I start to hear rain, and I was like, what is going on? There's no rain over here. And I turn around and look at the back of the valley, and there's this one cloud just coming in from the back, and it starts pouring on me. And so I disassemble my tent, and I like try to catch as much water as I can. And then I got it into a little thing, and then I got maybe like 1 bottle of water, and I was like, whew. Anyway, I was telling that story to my cousin, and she was like, you know who that was? That was your ancestors telling you, you dummy. You didn't plan properly. Anyway, the reason why I'm sharing the story is because I finally found the spring 2 days later in Waimanu, and the spring's about a mile back. So every morning I had to do my walk to go get the water. And I think that what that taught me is reliance and relationship to Aina. It's not as easy as going to Starbucks, you know? Like I had to go get my water before I could make my coffee. And so I think that those kind of little tidbits, I love those kind of reminders. And I love that through design and through even corporate branding, I can help to recombine this relationship and reliance to Aina. And it's through things like this Makavalu process, that I work with different corporate clients to kind of map out what kind of Aina assets or Aina values are important to them as a corporation. And we work through educational workshops. But anyway, long story short, the story that needs to be told is the disconnect from Aina and the reconnection and reliance on Aina. Water.
And I get the impression that you both have difficult conversations and need to have difficult conversations, and you do that through your work. And you know, design can be political. There's nothing controversial in that at all. And what I really do love about art and design is its ability to be a catalyst to the conversations that we don't have. And it's a way to raise our IQ in understanding each other. And I think that sometimes there are a lot of unsaid conventions around class, elitism, and privilege that can embed assumptions around identity, culture, and race, and that can deepen inequities and challenges that we do face, and much of some of the things that you said. So, in your spheres, in both your personal and commercial work, how do you leverage, those positions to have those difficult conversations and really open that up so that we can. And I love what you have said, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to quote you again, Kūhaʻo. How do you engineer societal norms through design?
Thank you for that. And I think, how many of you have seen the Live Aloha sticker? Okay, good amount of you. And the very first version of the Live Aloha sticker had a little flower next to it. It was a lehua flower, and this is like late 90s, maybe, or maybe early 2000s. No, actually, early 90s to late 90s. Anyway, it was a big campaign that had some government money behind it. That little lehua flower was artwork from my dad. I can tell you, guaranteed in the 90s, not that much people knew about ohia and the plant that the lehua flower grows on. Not that much people knew about ohia. And so that lehua, and then also having this bumper sticker that is on everybody's car, everybody started to recognize that lehua. As compared to today, now, you come to Mary Monarch and there's millions of variations of lehua art all over the place. And so to be able to see public, like general consciousness, now accept lehua as this beautiful flower of Hawaii, to me, that's an opportunity that I was blessed to have to see how my dad was engineering societal norms, bringing the idea of lehua to general consciousness. And that was really cool to observe it over the years. The thing that is starting to be shared now, only from like 2010 to now, is that lehua is also one of them that, because of the needles of the lehua that's on the flower, it gathers the mist and then slowly drips down to the ground, and that slow drip is actually the one that feeds the aquifer. So now when you're looking, bless you, so now when you're looking at the lehua is not only this pretty flower, now it's actually a functional entity within our water systems. And so these are the kind of stories that we want to share, and at the same time, engineering societal norms is also bringing this kind of narrative or bringing this kind of stories to general consciousness.
Word. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think, again, I feel like where I'm at in my career there's just not a lot of people that look like me, that talk like me, in the position that I'm in. And I think that has really been a practice for those that share space with me, where I'm at, to understand that, yes, people that look like me can be in roles that I'm in. And I think even that, again, it's a daily recognition for them that they're getting retuned every day. And I think every day that they see me walk through those doors, and I'm operating at the level I'm operating, it's a retuning, that you have to get used, to this. And also, again, being in a position to coach and mentor others, to see the opportunities as well. So again, it might seem rudimentary, but I think, again, my lived experience, my Black body being in these spaces really, it has to, you have to see me for what I'm capable of achieving, what I'm capable of doing. And I think, again, it's just not common. And I think that it's an act that really just sets the stage for the next to come. And it does mean a lot to me. And the way that we've, built a very diverse team, that means a lot to me. And I think that, again, these reoccurring themes of like Black excellence showing up in this way, I think it really, it's had people have to check in with themselves, in terms of like, oh, whoa, like, it's like, no, like I'm here because it's been earned, it's not given. And so, yeah, again, I just think that that type of operation in existence is really again setting the stage for the next.
Going beyond the token.
Correct. Because again, like me and Ced, we often talk about this idea of Black privilege. Like, am I here because I'm some diversity hire, or am I here because I'm actually good at what I do, and I think when you have these Black women on my team and they see me walk in and out day to day and they go, wow, like, that's our leader. And it's like, that gives me pride, it's like, no, like, he's here because he knows what he's doing. And again, so that, yeah, I think, again, my presence is a form of activism every day in that space.
Do we have time for one more question?
Really quick.
Oh my gosh, I have so many more questions. Okay. All right. I'm going to make it easy then. So, I mean, I really did want to talk a little bit more about systemic design, but I don't think we have too much time to do that. But maybe the audience can ask you more about that. But, I mean, okay. What experiences have brought you success and that you can share with us? So thinking about like maybe pivotal moments in your careers that have really opened the doors for you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the chair was one for me. As you know, Christine, Ben is somebody I cherish very dearly, who is Christine's brother. And during COVID, a lot was going on, as we know. And I hit Ben up and I said, hey man, I said, I have an idea. I think there's a lot of great furniture design out there, but they use great techniques, great materials, but that's where it stops. And I was like, I think that we can do all of that, plus with a story to tell, and bring something back to the light. And I started talking to him about the Greensboro sit-ins, and I was like, yo, look at these chairs. I think we can do something with this story and recreate and pay homage to this piece of furniture that they used to change the course of history. And so we set out on a journey to create that and tell that story. And obviously I've been a garment designer. It's been almost, 15 years now. But of course the furniture was the thing that like got me publication or whatever, But I'm sure, as Ben told you, as y'all clearly see, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. And that was something that really thrusted me into a different conversation, was the furniture design. And I think that obviously that was very pivotal. I think it garnered me the opportunity to share a stage with someone as prolific as this brother next to me, and to have the opportunity to learn from Bob, as well as Amy and Christine. And so, as well as the Fashioning Aloha exhibit. And, it's just been a blessing. And yeah, I mean, obviously I think that mixed with my opportunity to go to college to run track, like, that was the catalyst for, and as we, and a lot of Black folks, that stigma has changed a lot. But yeah, I mean, sports is sometimes the vessel to get to where you got to be. And that helped me out a lot until I discovered design. But yeah, I would say, creating of that Greensboro chair really took, my thought process to the next level. Again, to dream is a privilege, and I never thought that I could do that thing. I achieved a lot in the corporate world design, but to create something outside of that in a different medium and for it to do what it did, I had never imagined that could be a possibility. So it was, again, very emotional to achieve what that has done. And I mean, completely life-changing, for sure.
Miss Nakamura, Aaron Miyasato, Wojowitz, Ian Ganoza, Chris Cam, Ajit Man, Robbie Alm, Kamuela Enos, and this long list of mentors that have taught me so many things and literally has if I didn't know the path moving forward, they were there to kind of put the rocks together so that I could keep going down the path. And if it wasn't for that list of mentors, and I'm sure I'm missing a ton of them, but if it wasn't for them, I don't think I'd be sitting here right now. And I think the opportunities that they brought to the table has also allowed me to really develop my creative self-expression through design. And so I would have to give it to them. Yeah.
Okay, so it's question time. So if you have a question for Cedric and Kūhaʻo, please, raise your hand, and we can go from there.
No questions? Great.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, my question is about, when you're pulling things that are so close to your heart, your soul, that are from what you're dreaming up, maybe from childhood, and can't even really act upon until you're an adult. All that meaning to say something real special, that its relevance is tied to, like we're talking about, societal change, evolution of humanity, bringing humanity towards a more dignified state amongst each other and also amongst the land and all of these non-human life forms that we cohabitate the planet with. When you're bringing something through your art that its first value lies in that, have you ever had any struggle, and if so, how did you overcome that when putting a price on it? Because when you put a price on it and move it through business, that's how you move it beyond just your ideas in your inner circle. I would love to hear insight on that.
How do you move your ideas?
I'm Pake. I'm Chinese, so I'm a true blue salesman, definitely. But no. The monetary exchange is really just a part of the transference of that story, because the story is what's important. And so if you're paying, $20 for the new Dawn pants that Fabletics just came out with, or if you're paying $100,000 for corporate branding, whatever it is, to me the money is just the transactional portion of the transference of that story. And so I rather have the impact of that story, no matter how cheap or how expensive it is. I rather have that impact of the story rather than just keeping it close to me. So it might be my half Chinese side too.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Something I always talk about, people try to bifurcate the storytelling part mixed with, maybe if in the world of product design, trying to solve a problem or what have you. But the storytelling bit is really the most important. Creating a feeling. I like to say that my art practice is a feeling creation experience, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah, right, vibes. And so, because I think that's where people create, that connective tissue exists within that feeling. And I think, again, whether it's a song that you love or even experiencing the art pieces in the exhibit, something resonates. And so the story is just as important as any other part of it. And I think our people are natural storytellers. And I think that's something that I really harp on. You can't just it's not this empty thing. I think being able to make sure that the story is, that attachment rate is high, because that's where the goodness is. That's where the education through design exists. That's where revelations exist. And so, you can't, to me, that's the utmost of importance. And you gotta have that for things to really, I think, go as far as it can. Some of these things don't work without the story.
I want to add one thing. This is Kamuela Enos' term, but he calls it monetization. And the idea is that for you to come up with that beautiful concept or that beautiful story, create this beautiful piece of art, there's a whole surrounding environment of individuals, of place, of inspiration that allowed you to create that piece. So the financial transaction should go to support the creation or the building or the protection of that environment that allowed you to create that. And so for that, I'm okay to sell it to you.
I have something.
Yes.
Shout out to my team at International Marketplace. If you guys don't know, we have a store. This is my team here. Super excited to be here for Cedric.
Woohoo!
At Panelists, so come visit us. But what advice would you guys give your younger self? I know you say dreaming is a privilege, but looking back now where you are, what advice would you say to your younger self now that you're sitting here today?
Oftentimes I try to, whether that's like people that I mentor quite a few different people, or even when I talk to my younger brother, but I think there's been moments where I wanted to give up. There's been moments where I was like, man, this hurts way too much, whether that was when I was running track or when I was working on my senior collection of 30 pieces that I patterned and sold, whatever. And sometimes I'm like, man, if I could transfer this feeling to you, you might have gave up because it hurts, And I think it would have just been that added confidence of like, hey, you just keep going. You'll be so surprised what's on the other side of this. And I feel like that's like a big message that I try to share when talking to younger individuals of like, oh, it's really hard or I don't know what to do. And it's like, hey, like, you got to think about, what your passions are, all those things, but just continue to push because you have no idea what's on the other side of that work, and, whether that's cool achievements on the track or if you play a sport or whatever those things are. But I think it's easy to say, but that's why it's something I really like to push on because, again, that dream is very real. And if you can just get to the other side, it's a beautiful thing that's on the other side. So yeah, that's what I would tell myself. I was even telling my partner Michelle recently, I was like, man, like if I could go back in time and just see my younger self, I would just be like, hey bro, keep going. You have no idea what's about to happen. And so I think that's the biggest advice is just when it gets hard, that's when you got to keep going. Because again, you just don't know, it's a beautiful thing that's coming. So.
That I would say there actually, I still do it today, but whenever I have an idea, like an event or a logo or a t-shirt, whatever it is, I usually like sit down and like try to design it and, see what formulates. And there's this weird thing that happens like even when designing flyers or something like for a party or something, just like Ced was saying, like there's a feeling that exudes out of that design as soon as you're done with it. And so to me, I like to use, graphic design as my bringing the whisper to fruition, because it's a whisper of an idea that you're gifted with, and you're bringing that whisper to fruition by starting to design, And sometimes when I actually see the design start to come to fruition, and it's what I saw in my head, then I get excited, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. And then I start showing it to other people. Do you think this is cool? So I would say, especially with young creatives in the house right now, just get the idea onto paper. Make a list. I actually say that a lot. Make a list of the items that you need to do. Make a list of your idea. Write down your idea and bring that blessed gift of an idea that was gifted to you from somewhere out there. Bring it to fruition and take the small steps after that. Yeah.
We're ready for the collab. When is it dropping at
2026.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit, but yeah, I just want to add to that, bro. Like, again, like this idea of making your ideas real, it's, I don't know, it's just hard. It's hard to, I'm sure there's a word for it that y'all have in your culture, but it's like, it's such a magical thing when you get that little morsel of something and you go, oh, I think I can make this into something. And then you take that next step, and then you take that next step. And the next thing you know, you have this real thing. And there's nothing like this feeling of creation, making something out of nothing. You know, taking this bitter plant and making it so delicious. Talking about collards, you know, taking a being that was force-fed to slaves and making it a beautiful part of our culture from a food standpoint. Talking about black-eyed peas. You can make something out of nothing. And that little bit of something, you know, just grab onto that and see it through. Because, again, you have no idea what's on the other side of that.
Okay, we do need to wrap it up. I mean, this has gone by very quickly. But can I just ask one thing? Can you just tell us about what you're wearing?
Okay. Like everything?
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. The bucket hat is Fabletics. The shirt, Shaheen bought it during a trip to Japan. Silk from the 1950s. Beautiful piece that I had the pleasure of learning more about. So thank you very much. The pant, new Don pant, launches September 13th. Made for, you know, anybody, but 4-way stretch, water repellent, durable fabric. Yeah. So some campuses. All of my jewelry is from Vietnam. That's the only place I buy my jewelry. Blessed to have that. Pearls. I'm a Gemini, June 1st. So birthstone. And yeah, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's crazy. It smells so good. Thank you for that. But yeah, Don Pants launch September 13th. Go get you some.
So in the same vein, so this jacket comes out now. It isn't out yet, but it will be out soon. But it's just a utility jacket. But this print is actually the Palapalai fern, and Palapalai fern is one of my favorite and most it's not coming to me right now, but fragrant ferns, of course. And it's also an important plant to our hula kuahu, or to our hula shrine, to our hula altar. So for me, doing these kind of things is having the ability to be able to share about this plant that is so important to our ecosystem, but at the same time make it look cool on a jacket that's limited. But that said, I just liked the idea that I wasn't going to wear an Aloha shirt to fashioning Aloha. So
He let me do it.
Yeah. He got the nice one. He got the sheen on, so and it's good. But yeah, other than that, I would say the only other thing is the Todd loafers on, and that's actually a tribute
nice
to my dad because it's one of his favorite shoes. So
those are nice.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here, and please thank them and thank you.